Away from the vibrant capital, Nairobi, the northern region of Kenya is dealing with a severe drought. This week, we're highlighting the special edition of Our Voices, part of the Voice of America's recently released documentary titled Hunger Voices. We are highlighting the effects of climate change on women and girls, and we will hear from a woman promoting a solution and encouraging everyone to take action. Hello and welcome. I'm Oriani Tangishaka, and here with me is my co-host Jeannie Niwa. Semenyesha Koye is off today. Let's dive right into today's subject, the impact of climate change on women and girls. Now, Jeannie, we have been seeing severe drought in a few weeks now, but we're also seeing floodings because of the rain and things like that in Ethiopia, Somalia, and in Kenya. Have we been seeing any recent reports that suggest there's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the effects of climate change, especially on women and girls?
Well, like you say, right now this is rainy season, so I guess we can stay optimistic. However, according to the United Nations and Plan International, women and girls, they are bearing the worst drought experience in 4 decades. Sometimes women and girls are traveling at night just to avoid crowds and just exposing themselves. So this is very alarming. Also, child marriages, they have increased 51% just to reduce the pressure, the financial pressure on family, to get the dowry.
Right.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's really tough. It's really tough on family. One minute you're experiencing drought, the next minute you're experiencing flood. But, it's really unfortunate in that situation that they're in right now. Well, for now, we're going to now turn our attention to the special report, one that captured the devastating impact and the worst drought in 40 years in the northern part of Kenya. Hunger Voices is a documentary of a drought that has deepened the hunger crisis in the region, wiping out livestock and crops in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia. VOA's Africa's Omari Kaseko features pastoralists who lost almost all their livestock, parents with ailing children due to malnutrition, and government officials highlighting the ongoing efforts to help the victims.
This is the worst we've ever seen in the last 40 years. This is the worst drought ever.
People are getting to a point of where they are fighting so that they get to live, It's a matter of life and death.
The situation is very bad. In some of the counties, we're talking about 60% of the population is in crisis.
If it won't rain within this year, it's going to be pathetic. There's no doubt that a lot of livestock will be lost. Even human life are going to be at crisis.
They are the victims of emissions from elsewhere. So the world needs to show solidarity. It is not.
After the filming of the documentary, heavy rains and flash floods hit northern Kenya in April 2023, impacting thousands and exacerbating an already dire situation in the region caused by drought. VOA presents Hunger Voices inside Kenya's food crisis. Lago Village, Garissa, northern Kenya. Khadra Farah, nutrition officer, Save the Children.
We've had 4 failed rainy seasons. Here the health is deteriorating. There are no health centers around. The nearest health center is around 76 kilometers. That's the link facility to this outreach site. Most of the children here are malnourished. There is no water. The water is salty, so that means they cannot drink or use it at their households, the water. So they rely mostly on water tracking. And for water tracking, maybe per jerrycan is 40 shillings, and the one who can buy who has the money is the one who can get access to the water. But if you don't have that 40 shillings, you cannot get that water. How drought has really affected the community. Malnourished children are either given SFP or Plumpy Nut or Plumpy Sap. You might find at the household level, the mother has nothing to cook for her other children. So the only source of food is that plumpy nut, which she has been given by the nutritionist.
Gaida Budid, Lago resident.
We eat one meal a day, and that one meal is rice. We have not seen any signs of rain. The drought is everywhere. We lost our livestock and we were left very little. That's the problem that we are currently facing. We have to fetch water from very far, like Modika, Hagarburan, other places. Our taps are very salty and it costs a lot of money. Sometimes we look for fresh water, which we can't find. Sometimes we come back with empty jerry cans. This is how the drought has affected us. We have lost many livestock because we can't feed them. We used to sell some of the livestock to feed the others. But with the drought, we can't do that anymore.
Ahmed Ibrahim, Arid and Semi-Arid Land Humanitarian Network Director.
Women are the ones who really move long distances to get water. And in the process of doing that without something to eat, then it means their body condition is deteriorating. If there's even little food in the house, they are the last to eat, including for the girls. And from that kind of a context, the situation is very dire.
According to Kenyan authorities, over 4.3 million people living mostly in arid and semi-arid lands face severe food insecurity. Mado Aden, Lago resident.
If we leave right now, we'll reach our home at 9 in the evening. We left home at 7 this morning and arrived at around 11. We only stay at home for one day. Last night, my daughter came to fetch water for the animals, and it's still not enough to sustain them. Sometimes water trucks give us a gallon of water. The water is salty. We get sick sometimes from drinking it, but that's the only choice we have.
Moses Imalu, Humanitarian Manager, Save the Children.
The community setup is in a way that, for instance, it's the women and girls who are responsible for fetching water for domestic use. When water points dry up, they have to travel longer distances in order to get water for domestic use. In the process of traveling longer distances, number one, girls are forced to drop out of school because they have to spend more time fetching water. Women also have to abandon their daily chores because they have to spend more time traveling to get water. And in the process of traveling longer distance, they are also faced with protection risks. Issues such as gender-based violence. This is a real concern for women and children.
Jamila Usman, Shandarua resident, 14 years old.
Every day I have to fetch water. It takes a lot of time and we have to come twice a day. Another problem is dust. You can't walk fast because of dust. The well is far and the water is not clean. These are the problems we face.
Wow, you know, there's no greater sacrifice than giving yourself for others. And in this report, we hear, and we always hear that when food is scarce, women are always the last to eat. And it just breaks my heart because, you know, in a situation where women and girls are trying to provide for their families, but still it's not enough. There's just nothing.
Struggle. Absolutely.
Right? And I mean, what to do?
Yeah, and you know what? When I see that, I feel like I have flashback. You know, in the 80s, we used to see the same images, and you know, it was the Horn of Africa, mostly Ethiopia, and without outside help, there is no way, there is no solution.
I agree. At this point, when we're looking at the case of northern Kenya, we can see other places too, the effects of climate change on these regions. So it's a situation where, you know, we have to really look at ourselves as humanity when it comes to climate change effects, and especially on women and girls.
You're right. It's time for a short break. When we return, we'll continue this special report and hear more of what is being done by the system in place in northern Kenya, as well as some proposed solutions. We ask you to share your thoughts on this topic on our social media platform at VOA Africa. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
This is Our Voices. Today we are sharing with you a special report capturing the devastating impact of the worst drought in 40 years in the northern part of the East African nation of Kenya. Parts of a documentary titled Hunger Voices that highlights the drought that has deepened the crisis, hunger crisis in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia, and how it is mostly affecting women and girls. VOA's Omari Kaseko continues.
Moses Imalu, humanitarian manager, Save the Children.
If you look at the situation now, we are seeing more and more counties sliding what we call emergency phase of food insecurity. As rain continue to fail, we will see more and more households moving into an emergency phase. What that means is more and more households will be not able to afford meals or get meals to eat. We will be seeing more and more children sliding into malnutrition. And so that's the reason, as Save the Children, we say we need to act now. We need to provide the life-saving interventions at this point in time.
Ann Kobia Gutonga, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance.
It's a painful thing. And it's sad that these people don't know what is happening. They think it's God. And the truth is that it is man-made effects that are continuing to hurt our own people, our own humanity, people who do not know how to even react or even behave towards it. For them now, it's just a matter of survival. If we are not careful and if we don't act now, this is going to be almost a pandemic, if I would call it.
Jonathan Lati Lelalit, Samburu County Governor.
We now kind of agree that this is caused by climate change, and the people in northern Kenya do very little in terms of climate impact. So we do very little in terms of carbon emissions, but we get the worst of it. The people in this Western world do the biggest damage, but they get less of it. It's a very unfair situation. Those who generate the biggest carbon emissions are affected less. Those who generate almost no carbon emission are affected most. And that's the people of Northern Kenya, including the people of Samburu County. This message should reach those people in the West to help us go through this drought situation, because we contribute very little in terms of carbon emissions. We contribute almost nothing in terms of climate change, but we are the victims, the biggest victims.
Over 1.7 million people received assistance from 93 humanitarian organizations in 2022 through the Kenya Drought Flash Appeal, a UN-financed tracking program launched in October 2012. However, delayed and inadequate funding caused major challenges for the response, which fell far short of needs. George Warinda, Malka Gufu primary school teacher.
There has been a register of dropout because of drought. We have at least 5 to 10 dropout per class. And because that is the work of the teachers to find out what is happening, we have also realized that what has brought this dropout is scarcity of food and other assistance, other subsistence that the parents may need. Because this drought, number one, knowing that this is northeastern and they are pastoralists. Because of drought, parents keep on moving from one place to another. So you realize that parents have moved, and some of the parents are moving with their children. Some of the children are left at home, and because they are left at home and there's nobody supervising whether they are coming to school or not, it becomes difficult for teachers to search for them from their homes. Number two, because of this movement, as the parents are moving, we have realized that learners are left at home without food. And so it becomes a problem for them to come to school and go home daily without proper feeding. Earlier on, we were having school feeding program, which has been assisted by NGOs and the government. But recently, it is not there. So because of this, even us, the side of school, it is very difficult for us to succumb this problem, because the learners do not have food at home. At the same time, there is no food in the school. So that one may be one of the problems that has brought out this, what we call school dropouts.
Hassan Ismail, Malka Gufu village chief.
We are trying to make the kids go back to school, but we still have problems on how we can feed them, because their parents are there. Kids are stranded inside the houses, and no one is there to help them. We, as leaders, we take them to our houses. We feed them and send them to school like our own kids.
The problem cut across the boys and girls. Though this region, girls are more disadvantaged than boys because of cultural practice. Still, the understanding. So you realize that parents do not see the need of pupils, of girls being educated. When such problems come, you find that the rate of dropouts in girls are more than the dropout in boys.
Hassan Ismail, Malka Gufu village chief.
Girls that are submitted to early marriages are usually in secondary school. Because the parents cannot pay the school fees, they end up also marrying their girls who are in primary school. Paying school fees is a problem for parents who have nothing. The money they depend on comes from livestock, and now there is no more livestock because of the drought. These people are stranded, and that's why early marriages continue.
Ahmed Ibrahim, Arid and Semi-Arid Land Humanitarian Network Director.
If you really look at the current appeal of the drought situation, which is at $320 million, it is funded up to $181 million. There's a gap of 144. With the situation worsening, we anticipate the figures needed will be higher. What is spent on education, for example, in that response is around 19%. And largely, it is trying to ensure schools are still ongoing through feeding programs or water is availed or things like that. But for us to really keep those children in school, then the school must be able to have a way to keep that child in. So there should be a feeding program. Or if they're in those areas, then we have boarding facilities that really work for the pastoral setup.
Ankobia Gitonga, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance.
These are things that are known to our government. They know that these areas are prone to drought. They knew it was coming, and we shouldn't act as if we are surprised. Planning is crucial, and for us, we are calling and will continue calling the government to act and act immediately. Climate change is here with us. It's not leaving. We cannot keep on having conversations. It is a matter of urgency and action.
A matter of urgency and action. And I think that in this season, you know, we know the diaspora have a lot of resources which can contribute to countries. And we are looking at specifically the case of Kenya, but we also know in Somalia, in Ethiopia, even in Nigeria, in the West, and Zimbabwe, in the South, many countries are experiencing drought. And this season of festive season of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all the other holidays at the end of the year, I think this is another chance and another opportunity for the diaspora to continue even more to contribute to the development and to the assistance of the motherland, as they call it, the continent. And yeah, I think that, you know, we could do more. I know that, for instance, the Somalian diaspora community does a lot in terms of the development of the country. And so, you know, I think that it's a good chance to do something.
That solidarity, like you said, it's very important right now. Thanks again, Omarika Seko, for that special report. Before we close the show, we would like to bring you our Women to Watch report, where we share stories about women who are doing extraordinary things in their communities or nations. Meet Cécile Bibiane Djebet, a woman inspiring many to forest restoration as a mean to combat climate change. She is the co-founder of Cameroon Ecology and president of the African Women's Network for Community Management of Forests. In the next piece, she shares what inspired her to forest preservation and her call to action.
My journey with the conservation started with my childhood. My mom was a farmer. My dad was a farmer. All our life was in the forest. Farming, collecting forest product was a source of income. The forest was our home, and you can only love it. I'm Cécile Djebet. I'm a Cameroonian, agronomist by profession, specialized in social forestry. I started working in the Department of Forestry, and I was in charge of involving women into forestry activities in Africa in general. Women don't own land. They don't have ownership to anything. They don't inherit from their parents because they are women. Can you imagine women who produce not less than 70% of the food crop don't own land where they have to cultivate? When you own something, you decide on what you want to do with that. There is a straight linkage between security, tenure right for the women, sustainable development, improving conservation. There is a direct link. The first NGO I founded was Cameroon Ecology in 2001, promoting community rights to forest management. But we really wanted to have an umbrella organization. So that's how we founded the African Women's Network for Community Management of Forest in 2009. We are already in 20 countries in Africa, planting trees, doing agroforestry activities, millions of trees that women have been planted so far, helping them in restoration, helping them in biodiversity conservation, helping them in addressing climate change. Even in Cameroon, today at least in the forestry law and in the land tenure law, we have succeeded to integrate some gender issues, and women themselves are also gaining more exposure, more capacities to fight for their right wherever they are. We cannot succeed if we work in isolation. So our work is really to bring everybody on board, that by promoting women's rights, we promote sustainable development in general. Let's empower women in restoration. Join Generation Restoration.
Great work.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, what's happening right now with this climate crisis is also competing, you know, against other crises. What we had with Ukraine, Israel, we just coming out of COVID, but still help needs to continue.
Yes, we definitely still continue to highlight this crisis because it's not going to stop.
Absolutely.
Sometimes war are, you know, they stop, they're temporary, but the climate crisis, it's something that we're going to be dealing with generations down.
Yeah.
So you're right, you're 100% right in that even though the crisis is competing against other crises, we should continue to highlight the effects of climate change. And especially on, you know, things like malnutrition. When you're talking about malnutrition, you're looking at generational effects. You know, these children, you know, they're malnourished, their mental development, you know, it's just really devastating. So hopefully the international community, which I think that in addition to government assistance, the government do need to do some planning, but also the international community has a part to play because this is a global issue.
It is.
Yeah. Well, this is our show for today. We hope that today's show shed light on this climate crisis that is affecting many families in northern Kenya. And thanks to our colleague, Omari Kaseko. Yes, this documentary was really inspiring.
Yeah, and you can also watch the extended version. Visit our website at voaafrica.com or go to our YouTube channel. On behalf of all of us here at The Voice of America, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.